Hey guys, Sean here and welcome to the F1 Word, and we are live for our Sunday. I'm going to go with debate. It might not end up as much as a debate. We'll see how that turns out as we go. I'm on my own at the moment, so just bear with me. I'm going to pull somebody in just a moment, but we'll get the housekeeping out of the way. First off, are you all okay in chat? It looks like we've got a few here tonight again, so yeah, everybody looks up for a bit of a chat by the look of it, so that's good. Housekeeping out of the way, then you can follow me on social media. Links to Twitter, Facebook and Discord as ever in the description down below. If you want to support the stream, you can do so on Streamlabs, and also if you want to support the channel a bit more long term, you can do it on Patreon, so go check out the page over there. We are going to be talking about pre-season, basically, because we are just, what are we now, 4 days away from Williams' car launch, which is it's like F1 fan Christmas. F1 fan Christmas is right around the corner. It's going to be absolutely awesome. Can't wait for that. We'll be doing some analysis on that when the car is launched on Thursday. We'll have you covered through testing and everything, but it's not a million miles away now. Oh, it's getting very, very close. I am joined to start off with in the stream with ST. Hello, ST.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good.
Good, yeah. It's not far away now, mate, is it? Pre-season, it's getting nice and close. Ready for it?
Yeah, definitely. Gonna be fun.
It's a long old winter, isn't it, for an F1 fan? It's far too long.
Definitely.
Let's go. Yep. We'll start off then. Obviously, Williams are kicking us off with their launch in... I'm sure it's 4 days. I'm sure it's this Thursday. It's in a couple in chat saying 9 days. But I'm sure it's this Thursday, unless I'm completely wrong.
The Renault is in 9 days. That's the 20th.
Okay, yeah. So Williams is on Thursday. What kind of car are they going to turn up with? Do you honestly? Because I look at it and I think if you consider where they are as a team right now and the personnel they've got on board and how truly terrible their 2017 car was, are they, even with Paddy Lowe's influence, are they going to make a big step forward, or are they just going to keep falling backwards, I guess, is what I'm looking at for this season?
I personally don't think they're going to fall more backwards, but I don't think they're going to go upwards either. They're just going to be the same, just with a little bit different livery. That's all.
Yeah, it's a slight tweak to it. But, yeah, I mean, driver-wise, obviously we know, we've talked about it a lot. Lance Stroll, Sergei Sirotkin, not the greatest driver partnership they could have gone with. And the jury's out. They might surprise us all in 2018, but we'll see on that one. But do you think there's a possibility they've maybe written off 2018 very early and put full focus on 2019 with that money from Sirotkin, the money from Stroll and Paddy Lowe's full year of influence?
Yeah, definitely. The most part of the year is going to be used for making next year's car great.
It works, doesn't it? F1 history, you look at, trying to think of some examples, Brawn, who were technically Honda, of course, in 2008. They wrote off 2008. Red Bull did it as well. Worked out all right. Mercedes technically 2013, and that turned out all right for 2014 and onwards. So it does work. It just it just seems odd having a team write off an entire season. If that makes any sense, it just seems really weird that you go racing and write off a season. But maybe not. They might turn up with a car that stuns us all in Melbourne and wins the World Championship by Baku. I don't know.
To be fair, basically Haas did the same this year though, after mid-season.
Yeah, they did. That's true. Yeah, they because they actually said, didn't they, in the off season, or they said a few weeks ago that they felt they'd given up too early on their 2017 car. But hey, if that pays off for them in Australia, then that's great. But I think Williams will be looking over their shoulder quite a bit at Haas. That's a feeling I've got with that one. I think Haas are going to make a step forward, and Williams are kind of not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, definitely.
I do feel for Williams. I know it's probably a little bit of British bias in there, but yeah, it's not the.
No, it's a great team with good history in the sport, so most people like them.
Yeah, I think they've upset a lot of people this winter with Sergei Sirotkin. I'm not going to start slamming him again, but it's, he's a good driver. He's proven that he's not anything spectacular, but yeah.
I can be the odd one out and say I hope for Sirotkin.
See, it's not that I really want him to prove us all wrong. I want him to turn up in that car, nothing against Stroll, outpace him, prove us all wrong, and we all kind of go, oh yeah, sorry about that, mate. You're actually pretty good. I don't know. I didn't really hear a lot about, obviously we had him linked to Sauber for a while, but I didn't really hear a lot about him before that, and he wasn't particularly amazing, but then there have been some drivers making to F1 that weren't particularly amazing that have gone on to do pretty good things. So, yeah, who knows?
And some who hasn't, that looked good.
That's a very good point. Yeah, flip that round. That's a very good point. Yeah, well, it was natural to start with Williams because they were obviously the first car to be launching next week on Thursday. Red Bull are a team this year that I think they're going to have one eye focused on what Toro Rosso and Honda are doing. I think they will be competitive. I don't see them fighting for a world championship. I still think Mercedes and Ferrari are going to have way too much in that respect. But is a little bit for them 2018, not in similar vein to Williams. I don't think they'll write the year off. But do you think they are going to have that eye on 2019? If that Honda engine turns out to be pretty good, can you see Adrian Newey disappearing halfway through the year and starting work on that car nice and early?
Oh, yeah, definitely. If the Honda engine is going good, as I doubt it will, but still, if it does, he will start doing that car earlier.
It's hard to take what Honda say seriously. I was watching that Grand Prix driver on Amazon Prime last night, the McLaren documentary, and they were raving about how 2017 was the year that they were going to clean slate, they were going to get themselves up there, fighting for victories, and it was just absolutely dire. And they're already talking about top 3 with Toro Rosso.
Exactly. Even if you have a Mercedes engine in that car, you won't be close.
No. Well, I mean, the Force India's got a Mercedes engine in the back. It's a good chassis, and they're top 4, and they might struggle with that this year if McLaren do get a surge on with that Renault engine. But it just seems, I don't know. I can't read Honda. You think they would learn after what Ron Dennis said in 2014 about how they've been winning race in 2015, then again in 2016 when they're saying they're going to be dominating 2017, or at least competing in 2017. You think they'd learn to just keep their gob shut and be a bit more modest so they don't look completely stupid when it comes to Australia and both the cars retire after half a lap.
I think they're more like Renault, that, as I found an old post that said, Renault very confident of power and reliability gains in 2018. That they have said the last 3 years. Same with Honda.
I did read the thing on Renault, actually, where they said we're looking to beat Mercedes and Ferrari on 85% capacity, and it's like, yeah, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
You can't do it at 100. How are you going to do it at 80?
Exactly. That's exactly spot on. It's absolutely I just wish they'd shut up and just be modest. Just say, we're looking at, maybe a couple of podiums if we get a lucky race, but they don't. They come out singing and I don't know. Their PR machine must be pulling their hair out at times because it just is absolutely ridiculous. One car I can't wait to see is that Alfa Sauber. I'm going to be completely honest. Not just because of the livery, but I think seeing that car is going to be our first idea as to whether any Alfa money's gone in yet to the development on the car. I don't think it has. I think that will be very much a Sauber car. But I think as the season goes on, it's going to really get developed quite a lot, quite a steep gradient, if you like, of development on that car. But if they've got anything on there that looks a bit Ferrari-esque, it'll be pretty sure that money's gone in from Alfa. But I can't wait to see that car. I just can't wait.
If I don't remember wrong, there's a new employee there as well as they got from Ferrari, isn't there?
Yeah, there was something. I don't know who they are, but there was something that went on. Some people have gone over and gone to give a hand, effectively, I suppose is the way to put it.
Bring back that inside information, yo.
Yeah. All that inside information from Sauber to Ferrari. I bet they're desperate for that at Maranello.
Yeah.
Could be a good year for Charles Leclerc. We talk about him. Probably some people would say way too much on the channel. We've been accused of a bit of fanboyism and whatnot towards him, but he is. I don't care about that because at the end of the day, anybody that's watched him knows he is a sensational driver and he will be, if everything goes right for him, a world champion in the future. Is he going to smash Ericsson this year, or are we going to get... We want to see a surprise from Ericsson, don't we? It's a little bit of a joke on the channel. We'd love to see him do well, but do you think Leclerc's going to really beat him back this season?
Yeah, I was thinking of something, but I can't use those words on this channel, to be fair.
No. I have no idea what they were, but I can probably guess, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel a little bit for Ericsson because, we've all criticised him particularly for last year. But when you actually look at the times and the difference to Wehrlein, now everything's calmed down, he wasn't that far off Wehrlein's pace.
Nah, I said that all the time after the season ended when people hated on him for getting the seat instead of Wehrlein. He wasn't that far off. It was only 2 races that he missed the points that Wehrlein got him, and one of them was Baku.
Yeah, I think I can't remember this. I think it was 2.5 tenths off his pace on average. But when you listen to things we've said in the past on the channel and others have said in the F1 world, you'd have thought it was 2 or 3 seconds a lap slower, wouldn't you?
Yep.
He's not. I don't think he's a terrible driver. I think a bit like Stroll, he's always going to be tainted, if you like. Same with Sirotkin because of that pay driver label. I think that's the biggest problem for him. But I would like to see him, if he can stay within a couple of tenths of someone like Leclerc, I think he's a better driver than even I would give him credit for. So hopefully a good season for Alfa Sauber. What's realistic for them? Do you think they can be sort of third from last as opposed to rock bottom?
I think they could be fighting with Haas and Williams. Let's say it like that.
There was, I don't know who it was at Alfa Sauber actually has the impression, or is under the impression that they could be fighting towards the front end of the midfield by the end of the season. I mean, I said there's going to be a lot of development, but that's a bit of a stretch, I think, for a first season.
Then they need to just basically take the old Ferrari and just put some livery on it and say it was theirs.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can see them getting that high.
Dennis, I'm going to butcher names today. Dennis Atlasov says, is Ericsson actually good or Wehrlein not as good as we thought? That's a fair point, actually. Is it that Ericsson's brilliant or that Wehrlein just wasn't as... See, I think I've always rated Wehrlein.
I'm a mix in here. I'm the one who hasn't really rated Wehrlein that high, but I also rate Marcus Ericsson not that low.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. That's fair enough. Yeah, just having a look through chat, see if there's anything on Alfa Sauber. Does anyone think Wehrlein will back in F1 next season? No. I think usually when someone's gone, they're gone, aren't they? Which is sad because, I mean, like you say, you don't rate him that highly. But he is a good driver, and it is a shame when you think of some of the drivers on the grid. He should be there above them.
He would definitely beat out at least 5 of the other drivers, I would say. And that's just mentioning some.
Just some. we might come on to that. I'm sure somebody might ask now what those 5 are, but we'll save that for the towards the end of the stream. Big year for McLaren, obviously, particularly pre-season. The last few years, pre-season's been humiliating for that team. Again, in that documentary last night, it was proper. I had no idea it was going to be that much information. I know it doesn't matter when the season's over and we don't really care about the car anymore, but Alonso sat in the car during testing and said the engine was rubbish. We'll put it that way, and that they were never going to get anywhere with that engine. And that, for a double world champion to be driving in testing, knowing that car and that engine is that terrible, I'm actually amazed he raced last season with all the feedback he gave on that and his genuine opinions on that car at the time. I can't believe he raced last season. Whatever Eric Boulier said to him to convince him to stay, that guy is a genius, because it looked like he was gone. I will say, actually, if I mention that documentary, I am not sponsored by that or Amazon at all in this stream. I just watched it last night and it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. So if you haven't seen it and you can, it's definitely worth a watch. But they've got to get it right this year, haven't they? Or they're going to lose their prize asset, really, in Alonso. They've got to nail it.
Yeah, but Alonso said all the season long he didn't like the engine, never liked it. It was like always complaining about the engine, nothing else about the car. So the car was okay at least. And that showed at the slow pace tracks where you needed more aero. But also in the end, I liked his celebration in Abu Dhabi, preparing for next year.
Yeah, that's probably the fastest the Honda engine's gone all season, actually, in those donuts. But yeah, yeah, I'd agree with that. I think McLaren traditionally always had a good engine, in particularly when you had the Mercedes engine, obviously 80s with the Honda, and not a particularly brilliant chassis, but they seem to have flipped that over. So if Renault give them an engine that is able to compete at some level and have some sort of reliability, and they can get the chassis right, I think Alonso's going to have a better year than some are predicting he'll have. I think there could be a couple of cheeky wins in there for him.
Yeah, definitely. I think he could do about the same as Verstappen did this year.
Yeah, he's good enough. He's one of the best, if not the best, on the grid. What about Van Dorn, though? I keep saying, for me, the jury's out on him, although I do rate him very highly.
Yeah, I think his problem is that he basically has too good of a teammate. So we can't really rate him from what we see he do.
Yeah, he's always going to be... Yeah, I know what you're saying. It's difficult. You know, if you'd have put him up against, say, a Lando Norris, if you put him in that McLaren last season, or if you put, I don't know, if you'd put a Marcus Ericsson in there, for example, you'd probably get a better idea of where Van Dorn was. But chances are 9 times out of 10 when it comes to teammates, Fernando Alonso is probably going to outpace them. We know there have been examples where he hasn't, so we don't need to see the name in the chat reminding me. We know who that was. But chances are he's probably going to outpace them. So it's a tough one. I think Van Dorn's a good driver, and I think he'll do well this year. But again, like you say, with Alonso as his teammate, he's never going to be as good as that yet. He might make it one day, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, one day. When Alonso is out of the scene.
Yeah, Vladimir says Van Dorn had only 4 less points. That's true, but in terms of pace over the course of the season, Alonso was substantially quicker. I think actually Van Dorn had more reliability problems, though, actually. I don't know.
Sure. I feel like Alonso had more, but I think it's more like that he complained more about them.
Yeah, I probably should have checked the stats actually before I came on stream. I never really thought about it, but in my head for some reason through the season, I seem to remember Van Dorn retiring a lot. But like you say, it's only really the Alonso ones we ever properly heard about. So I think top 4 is realistic for McLaren this year. I know it's a big jump from, 9th? But I think with that engine, good chassis, top 4, good scrap with Toro Rosso, get in the mix with Red Bull a little bit. I think, yeah, top 5 minimum, but top 4 is possible.
Yeah, definitely. I think top 5. I don't think they're going to beat Force India.
I hope, not that I don't like McLaren, I hope they don't, because I think what Force India have done on a fraction of the budget of the big teams is amazing when you look at where they are. So,
and the improvement they have so far is really good this last year only.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Ferrari should have won the Drivers' Championship in 2017, didn't. Vettel's got to do it this year. Really, hasn't he? Because otherwise the pressure is going to be on. Because Ferrari, I can't see Ferrari standing for another year like 2017 where, okay, they had their mechanical problems, but mistakes made by him also cost titles. That's... Ferrari don't like stuff like that. So, I mean, I've already said I'll do proper previews and prediction videos over the next couple of weeks. I've already said I think Vettel will take the Drivers' Championship this year. But I think that's because he has to. I think he really has to. Otherwise, people are going to start asking questions.
Yeah, he definitely has to. I think if he doesn't, there's actually going to be talks about him next season just having to get out after the season. Just like Raikkonen this season, if he doesn't perform, he's out. I think if Vettel doesn't actually consistently fight this year or next year, it will end.
Yeah, when you look at how they were with Alonso in the end, how they were, like you say, with Raikkonen, even it's a controversial point, I guess, but even Schumacher in the end, they were desperate to get him out of that car to the point where he ended up retiring at the end of 2006. But I think part of that is, I don't know how to word it. I know what I'm trying to say. Part of that with Schumacher for me was his age, but I think part of it was that he hadn't won a title for a couple of years and he had the shot in 2006. Raikkonen was free. But if they're willing to give a 7-time world champion the boot, they're going to have no problem getting rid of a driver who hasn't won them a world championship, is the point I guess I'm making. So a part of it kind of entirely depends on what Mercedes do and what Lewis Hamilton does as well. If Hamilton leaves Mercedes or retires, as Jonty has predicted in the past, at the end of this season, then I can see Vettel ending up there. But I don't know. I do fear for him. And if anybody saw my video on Thursday, you know how highly I rate him. So I do fear for Sebastian Vettel if he doesn't get it right. I think it's one of those. Yeah. I don't know what you think, ST. I know you're not the biggest Vettel fan in the world, probably is the best way to put it, but...
Nah, I think he's okay. He's a good driver, but I'm just not a fan of his personality. Just the last 4 years.
It is, since I said in the video, since the engine regulation changes, really. He's become quite a petulant, moany guy. But then, as I pointed out again, you know, at the end of the day, if you come off the back of 4 consecutive world championships and then all of a sudden you're not very good in a car, your car's not very good and you can't compete, you can have a bit of a moan.
Yeah,
you are going to have a bit of a moan.
Just go back to Alonso again. He has 2 world champions, but now, yeah, those 3 years with Honda.
Yeah, I was trying to think. If he doesn't win the championship, what's an acceptable year for Vettel then?
He should have second at least.
Does he need to get, obviously, well, I was going to say if you take out his problems in 2017, he would have been closer, but he would have won the title. But he's got to be right on Hamilton. It's got to go down to a finale, and he's got to hope that if he loses a championship, it's got to be by a couple of points. It can't be by a huge margin.
Yeah, we can't have over like 20 points, I think. It's close, but it's only one retirement, but sure. We shouldn't have more than 20 points between them.
It was I was just trying to think about the season as a whole last year, where he kind of missed out. I think, obviously, his mistakes, I haven't got the stats again, but his mistakes cost him that title. I'm sure if Singapore hadn't happened and Baku hadn't have happened, I'm sure somebody said somewhere that he would have won the title. But I think it needed reliability better from Ferrari as well.
Definitely. I think the Ferrari, that word, isn't that bad. It was good last year, but just in the end, I'm guessing they changed something that ruined it. Because in the start, I felt like it was really good of a reliability. Yeah.
Well, it was like Vettel was back, wasn't he? That's how it felt to me anyway when we got to Australia and he won the race and he was leading the championship. He'd never lost a championship that he's led before, so sort of thought, this is it. This is the year that we're going to get a different world champion, or a driver that's a world champion that isn't in a Mercedes, and it just all kind of fell apart. It's disappointing. It's very, very disappointing. I'm just going to pull somebody in. You possibly know him. He sometimes comes on. Good evening, John T.
Good evening, Sean, and everyone. And ST, which is nice to find.
ST, yeah. Yeah, bit of ST, why not? We've just talked so far on McLaren, Ferrari, Red Bull, and Williams. I'll jump back to start very quickly so you can have a bit of a say on it. What are you expecting from Williams on Thursday, car-wise, John T?
I'm actually expecting it to be quite drastically changed from last year, because if you remember, Williams did come out and say they just got the design wrong. I think they said that in Spain, possibly even earlier, where they realise they've just gone the wrong direction with it. So there could be a lot of surprising elements on the Williams car.
Yeah, I think Paddy Lowe, there will be some Paddy Lowe influence on there, and I was saying at the start that I think when we get our first glimpse of that car on Thursday, that's when we're going to know how much of an influence Paddy Lowe's had. That's kind of how I feel on that, and we're going to get our first insight in that. If that car comes out, looks pretty much the same as last year's, which is sort of, parts of it were very similar to 2016, obviously apart from the rule changes for last year. I just don't know how much of an influence he's had, and I think me and ST were kind of in agreement that we think they've possibly even pushed back to 2019 now in terms of development.
Yeah, it could well be that, because like you say, with Paddy not having much of chance to have an impact last year, he's got to have pretty much all of this year to really get to grips with what Williams have done up until now.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. We'll jump on to Mercedes. They should be okay in 2018, but even there is talk coming out of Italy, conveniently, that they're having problems with their car on the dyno. They're shaking it to pieces. I don't believe that for 1 second. I think that is just Italian media doing what Italian media do, but that's probably Ferrari's best shot for me. Because if they've developed a 1,000 horsepower engine, I don't see anybody beating that Mercedes next year. So I think Ferrari's best hope is that they have shaken it to pieces and it's not very reliable.
Yeah, I did read that. sounds like there's a lot of sort of media games just to try and throw people's thoughts out. I can't imagine that they'll have got it so wrong so quickly.
Was that Ferrari engine? Ferrari chassis, I mean.
No,
what car was it?
The Mercedes chassis.
Oh.
Apparently, but that's like, would you say that's Italian media? And I'm pretty sure if you go back through history, usually you'll get comments like that from Italian media saying that Mercedes or McLaren, as they were when they were dominant in the 80s and 90s, if you like, Williams as well, that they're damaging their cars or they're not going to be reliable. It's hard to know whether to take that at face value, but maybe, just maybe. But it'd be a hell of a fall from grace if they end up being the third fastest car or something stupid like that. I can't see that happening ST at all. I really can't.
They shouldn't be able to do it, to be fair. They only need to get their chassis about right, as many people have said much before, as their engine is pretty much OP.
Yeah, as long as they've got that engine and build an okay chassis, they should be fine. I think that's the point, isn't it, really?
Definitely.
It's going to be interesting. I don't know. I don't get excited about the Merc car and the Ferrari car. I know there's more to it than a livery, but you know it's going to be silver and then the Ferrari's going to be red. So it doesn't particularly get me interested. Not like the McLaren one, which should be brilliant. Obviously, one thing we might have mentioned on the channel a couple of times that we will get next year is the Halo. I'm going to say we need to reserve judgment on Thursday on what the Halo looks like, because whatever Williams do with that Halo on a white car, it's going to look bloody awful. And it's going to stick out like a sore thumb. I hope they put the
Martini stripe on it. Just make the Martini stripe go from the front of the car and over into the Halo.
Yeah, that might make it stand out a bit more, though. That's my only worry.
I don't think we'll really see much of what the Halo will look like race-wise until we get to testing. Yeah. I think they are allowed, as we found out from James in his Mercedes video, they are allowed to put aero devices on it. So I think they'll keep all that hidden until testing.
No, I was just going to ask, actually, do you think that's going to be one of the most secretive parts of the pre-season?
It's definitely going to be up there.
I'm hoping, actually, this pre-season that Liberty are going to stay true to their word and lift some of the restrictions on testing and stop teams hiding quite so much. I understand why teams hide things. I'm not entirely stupid, but what I don't understand is, they'll spend all morning hiding their front wing and then send the car out in front of photographers, cameras. Like teams can't get hold of the photos really quickly nowadays. It's a little over the top. I mean, I kind of like it because it kind of brings that. It's kind of the given picture of pre-season testing, if you like, that you see in F1. But I just think it's a little bit over the top now, considering the technology we have. Anybody with a phone can take a picture and send that to the team. So I think hopefully we'll see a bit more of the cars.
Yeah, we should do. I mean, the only thing they can really keep hidden well is the diffuser, because sort of 80% of it is hidden under the car. But even then, all you need is a selfie stick and a GoPro.
Exactly, yeah, that's what I mean. Everybody's got the technology now to do it. Jack Munnelly, sorry about that. Which livery are you most looking forward to seeing? Without a doubt, for me, I think the McLaren and the Force India.
Definitely the Force India one.
Yeah, I am also quite looking forward to seeing what Alfa Sauber come out with.
Of course, yeah. And actually a little bit Toro Rosso. I've got a feeling they might go white and red. I don't know why. I'd like that. So to answer your question, just about every single team by the sounds of it, we know what Williams will look like. White with a Martini stripe. Ferrari will be red with a bit of black and white on there. Mercedes will be silver with a bit of turquoise. Red Bull, yeah.
I'd like them to be more turquoise.
Yeah. I'm hoping Haas do something a bit more interesting. I think Ryan said it last week that he was disappointed they didn't go a bit more patriotic with it.
Oh, please don't.
Not like American flags hanging off everywhere or anything like that. Just, grey and white and a little flash of red's a bit dull. I'd like to see, maybe red or white.
At least get it red, white and blue, yeah.
Yeah, just something a bit more interesting than the grey. But I think I'm looking for seeing the Haas car, given that they've probably spent 6 months longer full-time working on their 2018 car than most. I don't see it being a big challenger, but it'll be interesting to see what they've gone with. It is green, says Callum Tanner. I don't know if that's probably in response to somebody else, but I did actually see that people were talking about possible British racing green for Red Bull with the Aston Martin sponsorship. I can't see that happening, and it would look disgusting with like Red Bull sponsorship on it, frankly. I don't know. I think Red Bull will stick with what they've had, to be honest, for quite a while. I just hope Force India stick with the pink. And if you said I would say that 12 months after they launched that livery, I'd never believed you, because I thought it was hideous to start with, but it's one of the best on the grid now.
Yeah, it's fun.
It stands out as well. It reminds you of the Jordans of the 90s, the bright yellow. You know that car. You know what it is. You don't sort of have to squint and go, is that a Mercedes? Is that a Ferrari? Yeah.
Yeah, it really works for them. We need more of that.
We do. A bit more fun. Christmas turquoise. I always thought it was green. Am I colourblind? It's a bluey, greeny, aquary, turquoisey. I would never say it's green, but I would never say it's blue on the side of that Mercedes.
It's teal.
That's the one. Teal.
Isn't it not Turkish?
Is it what?
Turquoise. Fuck.
Turquoise. Turkish. I don't think it's Turkish. Pretty sure they're a German team. Somebody said, actually, I just missed it about Sean Bull Designs. It's Magic Vibrations. We have said a lot. We can't understand why a team haven't snapped him up, really, can we, Jonty? Because he makes such brilliant liveries. I
haven't seen a bad livery done by Sean Bull yet. They've all been fantastic. And he churns out 6 or 7 for each team. And how is he not working for them? Every single livery has been brilliant.
Yeah. I obviously missed it, but apparently ST swore, so language.
I'm sorry.
Apparently I just missed it, but yeah, you're all right. It's okay. So looking at pre-season, before we get into what we're expecting from testing and the season itself, come to you first, Jonty. Which car in total for design, livery, everything are you most looking forward to?
I've got to see, with the Paddy Lowe influence, it's definitely got to be one of the Williams.
Yeah.
I really think it's going to be quite a dramatic change, and also along that, the McLaren livery.
I'm hoping they go papaya orange. But that's because I'm a bit biased now because I watched their documentary last night. So
you're on the true Bruce McLaren Can-Am colour.
Yeah, proper one, like Alonso ran at Indy last year.
Yeah,
proper one. What about you, ST?
I'm personally hoping for the Alpha one because I feel it's going to be the most changed one.
Yeah.
Also, I put a nice picture of it in Discord of one of the designs if somebody wants to join there.
Oh, there you go. He's plugging Discord for me. You are good at this, ST. Yeah. You can join us on Discord, and then you get to see that wonderful picture that ST shared. So it's one of his better ones that he shares. We'll put it that way. So pre-season, are we going to get a big shake-up to the grid this year, or are we just going to see, what's the term I like to use? I think Martin Brundle used to use it a lot, evolution rather than revolution.
It's definitely going to be a lot of evolution, however you want to pronounce it. Yeah. But there could be some elements of revolution in there. I mean, I heard you mentioning about how the Ferrari was really strong at the start of last year and seemed to fall away a bit in performance. But you got to think at the start of the year, Ferrari managed to do some very, very clever things with the winglets around the side pods and the barge boards.
Yeah.
The other teams took quite a while to catch up with that. So all it needs is one team to find a clever solution for no T-wing or somewhere else to put it. And that'll be the other teams playing catch up again. And if it's not one of the top 3 teams, it will really shake things up.
Well, they've said, I think it was, I can't even remember. I need to write these things down when I see them. But there was something on Twitter the other day, an article about how the T-wing can't be where it was last year, but it can actually be lower down on the car. So they could actually sit the T-wing, apparently, or allegedly, between the rear wing and the engine cover, somewhere in there, like they used to with the monkey seat. I love calling it a monkey seat.
Yeah, and in its same position, just lower, much lower down, which Williams already did last year. They had the sort of the double idea of a normal T-wing, and they had wings right down at the bottom, almost like a little bridge on the bodywork itself. So if they were doing that with sort of in advance, knowing that the T-Wings were going, maybe they've got a head start.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing some of the bits they're going to come up with, because obviously regulations are a bit tighter this year than they have been, or have been. What about you then, ST? Do you think we're going to see a big change at the front in 2018, or are we going to get pretty much more of the same?
What, in team-wise, or?
Yeah, in running order, pace, do you think, I mean, yeah.
Only one I think will change really is McLaren and Force India. I think Force India might make the jump up to third. Being bold here, okay?
No, so I'm just writing it down to go next to Jonty's predictions for the end of the season, when we can do 2018 review. How wrong was Jonty and how wrong was ST? So yeah, I'll write that one down. But yeah, I think third would be a stretch for Force India, but I don't know why. I get the feeling Ferrari and Mercedes are going to have improved more than everybody else and probably be even further clear of third, fourth and fifth. I think that's the fight for me. It's probably going to be Red Bull, McLaren and Force India. Not in that order necessarily, but I think that's the fight. But I think Red Bull will just have enough.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I think that one's going to be pretty much undecided. They really could go either way.
It's as we say every week, it's just all down to Renault. It is all down to what Renault bring. On Renault, are they in an awkward position this season if they get a good, reliable engine and then they get absolutely smashed by Red Bull and McLaren? That's not going to look great on them. Obviously, they're not going to be as good at building a chassis as, say, Red Bull with Adrian Newey on board, but that's going to look bad on a work team if you get absolutely destroyed by the two people you're supplying engines to. Yeah,
it certainly doesn't look good in the public eye, that's for sure.
I think that's a lot of the reason behind them deciding to probably ditch Red Bull at the end of 2018. Obviously, the bad mouthing doesn't help, and it's probably the main reason, but I think one of the reasons behind it doesn't look good if... I mean, they've been nowhere near, despite having basically the same engine. It's very... I find Renault an oddity. I've always had in Formula One. They come and go. They're not really ever... Probably 2005-6 aside, they're not really ever been a proper front-running car for a long time. I want them to nail it, because I want Carlos Sainz to be up there fighting, because I think he's going to be an incredible talent, or he is an incredible talent. And I want Nico Hülkenberg on a podium before he retires or gets dropped. So,
yeah, I mean, they haven't been a consistently front-running team since the mid-80s in the turbo era. So it would be great to see them back up there. And like you say, to see Carlos Sainz up scrapping with Verstappen and Ricciardo and the likes, there would just be another proper racer as opposed to fast driver, if you get me.
Yeah. Any thoughts, ST?
On the Renault side, I can't really speak of the history on it, because I'm not that old, let's say that.
Oh, that's rude. That is rude.
Sorry. No, but the thing I've seen the last years is the only team that actually have managed to use the Renault engines, or the Tag Hero as they call it, is Red Bull. Renault hasn't been any good themselves with the cars they have had.
Yeah, I think what I like about Renault is they came back to the sport. They weren't great. They took a step forward the next year. Not great, but they took that step forward. If they can progress again this year, what I really would love to see, not just for them, because I think it would be great to see Carlos Sainz and Hülkenberg out there fighting, but for Formula One, if they can get it right with the chassis and the engine's reliable enough, we could end up in a situation where we have Red Bull, McLaren, Force India and Renault scrapping for third, fourth, fifth, sixth and seventh. If my maths is right, probably not. But that would be the ultimate midfield scrap, especially if Williams come up with something that isn't too bad as well and their drivers nail it. We could end up with one hell of a midfield fight, and that midfield fight was pretty close anyway.
It's what we all want. I doubt it's going to happen.
Just if they could either catch the front two or drag them back a little bit, that'd be even better, wouldn't it? You know, you're always going to have your runaway leaders, but I think if we can get a good midfield fight, we've always got something to talk about in a race. Even Abu Dhabi, we joke about it and been absolutely dire, which it was, but we're still talking about Ericsson's overtake on a struggling Stroll and some of the scraps in the midfield. So as long as we've got a midfield fight, maybe I'm being a bit too optimistic and a bit, the good old days of F1 again. But as long as we've got something to talk about in the race, I think it'll do. It'll do. A good midfield scrap. What do you reckon, John T?
Yeah, well, like you say, if Renault, the team, not the engine supplier, managed to come up with a half-decent chassis, and Williams managed to get it vaguely right compared to last year, that's 5 teams that could all be scrapping for the same bit of track.
Yeah.
It doesn't really get any better than that.
You think of the names in there as well. You think Alonso, Verstappen, Sainz, Ricciardo, Ocon, Perez. That'll do. Well, that'll do. Forget Ferrari, Mercedes. Just watch the midfield. It's going to be incredible. I'm just going to pop a picture of a Lola Ford on because I want to on the stream because I mentioned it last week and the week before, and it does exist. There it is. The 97 Lola lasted 1 Grand Prix. I don't know why it's in here. It just is apparently, but there you go.
Did it actually qualify? I can't remember.
It didn't qualify. It did testing, and then it tried to qualify. Didn't get inside the 107% rule by a mile, and then they turned up at Brazil, or they didn't turn up at Brazil, or did they? I can't remember. But by the Brazilian Grand Prix, all the money that MasterCard apparently were going to pay them didn't turn up, and then the team folded, which was... Yeah. Luke in chat just going random. It's a long story, but a few weeks ago, basically, somebody mentioned it, and everyone was like, Lola? Never heard of him. And I was like, they do exist. I swear I wasn't drunk or dreaming.
Lola were around a lot longer before that. Plenty of cars in the 80s that were successful. This was their desperate comeback that was pretty desperate.
Was it? It was Eric Broadley that bought them back in 97. Was he anything to do with the original? I don't think he was he?
No, I think he had some ties to March.
Yeah. I think that was his dream of having his own F1 team. So we have completely wandered off topic with that one. And there you go. It's there now. Yeah. So I'll put that picture back. We'll ignore it. I'll come to you first, ST, then before we get into Q&A. Your boldest prediction for 2018?
My boldest prediction?
Your boldest prediction?
Esteban Ocon third in the Drivers' Championship.
Ooh, I like that.
I'd take that. No, but yeah, why not? John T? Well, which one do you want? I've got a list here.
I think was it last week or the week before? Well, just for the hell of it, because I would love it to happen. Alonso on pole in Australia.
Okay, yeah.
The other one was, and the other one is the French Grand Prix will be the best race of the year.
Cool. I am going to go with Red Bull to finish second in the Constructors. That's about as bold as I'm willing to go. And McLaren to finish 4th. There you go. And Leclerc to get 5 points finishes, just because then I'm only half as wrong as John T if it doesn't happen at the end of the year. So,
I said 10, didn't I?
You did.
I'll take 12 on that.
We're opening the book on anybody else coming in any advances on 12 for Leclerc. Let's jump straight into Q&A then. We'll not bother with an advert because I've not had quite so much to drink this week. Get your questions into chat. We'll answer as many as we can. Obviously, we now do Wednesday streams for Q&A, so we won't do quite as long, or we'll try not to do quite as long for Q&A this time around. So, let's have a look. TC McQueen kicking us off with, if Sirotkin DNFs or crashes in the first few races, do you foresee Williams putting Robert Kubica in the seat?
No.
No. He's paid up, hasn't he? That's the problem. Sirotkin's paid up for the 2 seasons, so...
Yeah,
at least 2.
At least 2, yeah.
If something happens to prevent him from racing, then obviously he will, but will they have the speed to be in that kind of incident?
Yeah. Pentakick says Hulk to get a podium this year. Finally, that's another good prediction there. The Mighty Dash, Halo removed on safety grounds. That's his prediction. That would be a turn up for the books, wouldn't it?
That would be hilarious.
H Dan 4438 says, what happened to all the talk about a Force India name change? Last I heard, if it's going to happen, they're announcing it when they launch the car. So,
yeah, there was also some talk that it was just Sahara Force, and they just dropped the India bit.
Yeah.
So God knows what it could be.
I don't like that at all. Sahara Force. I don't know. FJTY says, who is going to be the Jolyon Palmer of 2018?
K-Mag.
Yeah. Bottas? It's not as bad as Jolyon Palmer, surely.
Well, if you think about the teams they're in and how they should perform.
Yeah, that's a fair point, actually. Maybe a shout on Raikkonen in that respect, but I think I'd probably have to go K-Mag. If nothing else, he'll become meme of the season. He'll say something. Yeah. I don't know. Lunatic says, what do you think if Vettel joins Mercedes? Jonty, are you still predicting or get the feeling that Lewis is going to retire at the end of 2018?
I really do. Just the way he was after the title was decided last year, and then all of the social media stuff, it just seems like he wants to be out. It seems like he wants to pursue his own brand and all of that stuff more than the racing.
Yeah. If he went, could you see Mercedes chasing Vettel?
Possibly.
With Verstappen probably going to Ferrari and replacing him. Because like I've said the last couple of weeks, I think Ferrari have not got dibs on him or anything like that, but I think they've already had words. I think he's on their radar now.
Mercedes would certainly try, but I don't think Vettel would leave Ferrari for it.
It's that desperation to try and emulate Schumacher, isn't it, and what he did that will probably keep him there. I guess it all comes down to obviously what Lewis does, but also how he performs in 2018. If he doesn't have a great season and Ferrari are poor, then he might consider it. But
I mean, it could be completely misreading it, and all he did was just keep his desire away to try and stay out of the social spotlight because of all the social media stuff. You know, it's entirely possible, but it just felt like the hunger was gone after the title was decided.
Yeah. I also think Ferrari maybe made a switch as well to focus on 2018 at that point when they realised it was pretty much gone. I just saw a question. Howard, Giovinazzi F1 drive when? I think he's blown his chance. I'm probably in the minority, but I just think those mistakes he made when he did get his shot, I think it's probably put people off him a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he had two races for Sauber at the start of the year and dropped it twice.
Yeah.
It's not a great record.
And so much talent still coming through that probably jumps ahead of him on the list as well. So what do you reckon, ST? Can you see him getting an F1 seat, Giovinazzi?
Definitely not. When you're third driver for Sauber with Marcus Ericsson in it, you kind of struggle a little.
Yeah.
If they really wanted him in the sport, Ferrari would have made some extra investment.
I think my gut feeling is if he was going to get in, he'd be in Haas. He'd have replaced Magnussen at Haas.
That could also work.
Yeah, that's a more logical choice. But like you say, there's just too many other drivers who are better now.
Yeah, just looking through some names cropping up. Obviously, Fuoco's one. I rate him. A few people don't. But aside from him, you look at the likes of Markelov. I mean, a driver that needs to be on the grid, and I'd take him over Giovinazzi any day.
Yeah.
Definitely. I have kind of a problem here as I'm a big Fuoco fan, but I feel he's way too inconsistent on his drives. Sometimes he's up in top 2 or top 3 every race, then just pops up and goes 15th and 14th 2 races in a row.
TC McQueen, do you think that this is a nice easy one for me? Do you think that Stoffel Van Dorn will get more points than Alonso in 2018? No. In a word.
Yeah, not a chance.
I think he'll be closer than he was, and I think he'll have a good year. I think we have to ignore Alonso a little bit when it comes to Van Dorn and sort of look at him in terms of pace and his performance. But yeah, I think Alonso back towards the front end, even if it is only top 5, he's going to be a lot happier, and I think instantly going to be quicker in that respect. Little question to break off topic a little bit. What do you think of Kimi's Instagram? Says Delirious User. I think he's been forced into it against his will. Looking at some of his posts, he's really not really bothered, is he? But
the randomness of how he deals with it, it's almost what Instagram was made for.
Isn't it basically just him as a person, random as crap?
Yeah, just exactly, completely random. And some of the posts I've seen, they do make me laugh. And some of the pictures as well that someone's taken, I'm putting this on Instagram, and you see him almost like, no, don't do it. I'm glad he has in a way. I'm not a big fan of social media for F1 drivers. Same with footballers. I think it takes over way too much. But at the same time, if we get to see a bit more of Kimi Räikkönen being Kimi Räikkönen, that's got to be a good thing.
Yeah.
Zane asks, will Ocon win a championship and where will he be in 2019? I still think he's got a shot at the Mercedes seat if Bottas doesn't step up, but he's young enough that he doesn't need to panic. He will be a world champion if he gets it right, his moves and that. I think he's good enough.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. He's just got to make sure he makes the right career choices.
Definitely going to Mercedes next year. Either if Hamilton leaves or if Bottas gets fired.
Yeah, like I say, it all kind of comes down to what Bottas does next year. If he has another... He didn't have a poor season. He just didn't really set the world alight in what was, at times, the fastest car on the grid, or at least one of throughout the whole season.
Just don't give him a contract before the season is over.
Yeah, that's the same, though, for Kimi Räikkönen. That's why I think he might surprise us this year, because he's under pressure straight away. And that's when he does his best work. So, yeah. Can we see Kimi winning a race in 2018? Are Ferrari going to let him?
If Vettel crashes.
If Vettel's not on the grid, they might think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If he's got the hunger back and takes the Ferrari warning of performance seriously, I think he might ignore what they tell him and just go for the wins anyway.
Yeah.
At least I hope he will.
If he ignores them, though, will he last more than half the season?
True. Yeah. I think, like you were saying, I think it was last week, John C. You kind of get the impression he's done his bit and he's had enough now. I hope he does, because I do like Räikkönen. I know we have a bit of a joke about him from time to time, but I do like him. He's a funny guy and he is a good driver. He's a world champion. You know, he had to have been a good driver at some point. He's just not the same driver he was by a long way back in the early noughties. So, but I'd like to see him do well. Do you think McLaren will be mid-pack this season? Asked Lily Gaming. What did I say earlier? I forgot my prediction now. Top four. Top four best, top five worst. So definitely a big jump forward for them.
Yeah, that sounds about fair.
I can see Ricciardo going to Mercedes. What about you? Asks Ben Cook. I'd never really thought about him at Mercedes. He has said he wants to race in the same team as Lewis, though, hasn't he? So,
yeah.
I still think Ferrari if he moves. I don't know why.
Well, you see, if the worst happens and Lewis retires and Bottas hasn't performed, that's 2 seats, and
yeah,
all things indicate that Ricciardo will be looking for a seat at the end of 2018. So he's definitely a top driver. Mercedes would be silly not to snap him up.
I'm gonna throw this in here because why not? What about Ricciardo and Sainz at Renault?
I wouldn't mind. I would definitely not mind that.
I wouldn't mind it, but I think it'd be a step backwards for Ricciardo.
I think if we get to halfway into the season, he's not signed a contract, Honda are absolutely dire with Toro Rosso, and Red Bull have no choice but to go with Honda in 2019. Obviously not knowing what Honda are going to do in 2019, would it be a step down knowing what he knows at that point? It's
yes.
kind of really still.
Yeah. I think with Ricciardo, if 2 seats open up at Mercedes, he will go for that as much as possible. But other than that, McLaren would be a good spot for him, depending on how they do this year.
If let's play that devil's advocate game, stick with that. What if Lewis does retire? What about Alonso to Mercedes? Could you see them considering that just for a couple of filler seasons before the big changes in 2021? he'd want to go there. We know that. So
yeah, I could see Alonso considering it. It depends whether.
Yeah.
I think the big factor there would be Toto Wolff. I really could not see Toto Wolff being able to work with someone of Alonso's large persona, shall we put it nicely.
He doesn't take any, does he? He just doesn't. Sticking with Ricciardo, Perenni Davis says, do you think Ricciardo is going to be sabotaged by Red Bull? I don't think. I know they've said they're building the team around Max Verstappen, but I don't think they're going to play the number 1, number 2 driver team as such, like Ferrari do. But I think there could be some preferential treatment towards Max, but mainly because if you look at it from a team perspective, if you've got a driver that has penned a deal versus a driver that hasn't, you're not going to focus on building the team around a driver that could disappear in 12 months' time. So,
yeah, exactly. I don't think it'll be more. I think it'll be a case of sabotage because I think Max has got enough to do it on merit.
Yeah. What do you think, ST?
About what again? I'm reading the comments out, looking for questions.
Oh, right, okay, yeah. No, just whether Red Bull will sabotage Ricciardo in 2018.
Nah, definitely not. It's basically what you guys said, the contract thing. Sign the contract, then they will make him more available for the stuff again.
Yeah.
But I would like to see Russell, Ricciardo, Mercedes though. If both Bottas and Hamilton leaves.
It'd be a good lineup, but I still think I'd put Ocon there.
Oh wait,
before
I said
Russell.
Yeah, I meant Ocon. I said Russell.
Yeah. So much talent coming through. We say it all the time, but there just really is. I'm really looking forward to F2 this year as well. And that leads us into Harris Forrester's question. What current F2 and F3 drivers do you think we will see on the grid in, say, 2022? I think the obvious ones, Markelov should, but I've got the feeling we won't. I don't know why. Fuoco, probably. Norris, definitely. Russell, probably.
I'd say Russell, definitely. Aitken.
Yep. Nick de Vries, I think, deserves a shot. Whether he's going to get that or not, he's been dropped from the programme today. That's any problem. Yeah, Giotto.
I don't think Giotto
Latifi
will.
Nicolas Latifi might.
Latifi could now that he's development driver for Renault, I believe. Was it
Isn't
Renault?
it Force India?
Force
Yes.
India. Yeah, Force India.
Force India, that's it, yeah.
Which was a surprise because I thought it would be a Renault one, but no. I thought Russell was going to get the one at Force India, but that went to Latifi.
Maybe they want to change both Force India drivers for next year.
Yeah.
So they have Latifi and Russell.
What about Sete Camera then, ST?
I like him.
Yeah.
But a little bit inconsistent, but I like him.
Yeah, I see him on a par with Fuoco. They're both very, very fast, but very inconsistent.
Yeah. Praveen Sony says Mick Schumacher. I've said it before. I think the biggest problem for him, as ridiculous as it may sound, is his name. I think he could be a very good driver, but he's got a hell of a name to live up to. And that pressure's been on since pretty much he started in racing. When you go right back to his karting days, if you go back and watching the pressure around him, the attention around him, and that can't be good when you think of the age he started racing. That can't be good at that age. So he's a good driver. He is a very good driver, but the problem for him as well is there are a lot of drivers that are probably better.
Yeah, it's going to be unfair on him having to try and live up to that name. And that's just something the public are going to push on him. Then he will basically have no control or say in how his career goes, which is very, very sad.
Ben Haresh asks, will Honda buy Toro Rosso in 2021 and become a works team? I don't see why not. It's an option.
Definitely. Couldn't be worse than what they have.
Yeah, it would make sense from a business acumen.
Absolutely. Maybe even end of this year if they nail it. But I don't know. I think it's down to Red Bull. If Red Bull do have to go with a Honda engine, then they've kind of got, with respect to Toro Rosso, I think Honda have probably got a better deal letting Red Bull pay all the money and Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. Who will buy Red Bull? Asked Lunatic. I don't see them going anywhere as a name on the grid. Toro Rosso maybe, but I can't see the Red Bull racing team going anywhere.
No, they need to keep that name.
Yeah. RC asked, do the British press hate Vettel? I don't know. I never understand press. We were talking about the Italian media, weren't we? They're always going to show bias towards Ferrari and Italian drivers. National press is always going to show bias towards their national driver. But what I don't understand in Formula One, as I try not to go too ranty about it, is why that's such an issue in Formula One. Yet if you were an Englishman that supports England at the World Cup or a German that supports Germany at the World Cup, that's absolutely fine. But if you support your national driver, you're a fanboy and you've got favouritism and it's bias. Very weird.
Yeah, but there has been some bias by British media in the past. I will be honest. I firmly believe the BBC were quite biased against Michael Schumacher.
Yeah, I agree.
With behind the scenes stuff, we only ever saw him in negatives or when he was having an argument with someone. We never saw the hours and hours and hours of him messing around and having a laugh and generally being an awesome guy.
Yeah, when, like you say, go back to see old footage and reviews and things. I think there's always going to be bias in the media, particularly when you consider, well, really only the one occasion that Vettel and Hamilton came to blows last year. There was always going to be bias on each side's media, but I don't know. I find Sky very biased, but like I just said, it's British Sky and he's a British driver, so I can kind of understand it. It's annoying at times, but I can understand it, and I'd imagine it's the same in every country, to be honest. But I like Vettel. I said it in my video on Thursday. I don't like his petulance at times, but I think I find him quite underrated.
Yeah, in some ways.
I would say it's rated right where it should be.
Do you think Formula E will become the pinnacle of motorsport? Nope. They positioned themselves nice and hypocritically this week, haven't they, John T?
Oh, yeah.
Done a good job with that. Brilliant. Well done, Formula E.
Yeah, and it's still controlled by the FIA, which is what I don't understand. It's all the same governing body, so why do they get something that has caused such a massive issue with their removal? Surely it should be a blanket ban across all FIA-sanctioned motorsport.
It's the welcome to the 21st century Formula One tweet, and then a week later you're saying, but we're going to continue to use grid girls now, and you sort of, yeah. Why? I still don't understand why Formula E feel the need to position themselves as a rival to F1, because it isn't. It's a completely different series, completely different circuits, completely different cars, completely different rules. Yeah. It's not a rival.
Yeah, and I think by the time that it could be a rival in any way, or with them being comparable, F1 will be so much more advanced that the gap will stay the same.
Yeah. The Mighty Dash says FIA didn't ban grid girls, F1 did. Absolutely, it was a Liberty Media call, but it was signed off by the FIA, and they did make comments saying that it was basically about time, and then confirmed them for Formula E. So, yeah, it's not. Formula E is it's probably going to be the road relevant motorsport, but I'm going to hold judgment on it because although A1 was completely terrible and absolutely a damn sight worse than FE, these new series don't tend to stick around. So we'll wait a while. It probably will. I think the FIA put the backing towards it, but don't position yourself as a rival to a sport that's got 6 decades head start on you and a huge fan base, because that, if nothing else, that will put off potential fans of the sport because they'll see it as a bit of a petty sport, a petty dig almost.
Yeah, exactly. And I imagine there'll be several people watching who can remember what happened to A1 Grand Prix.
Yeah, that was terrible.
The racing wasn't that bad. The racing was quite entertaining. The way they went about the whole thing was just idiotic, and it disappeared. because they try to market themselves specifically as an alternative to F1, which it never was going to be.
Yeah. Akko says, will F1 get electric engines? I don't think they will. A few people have been saying this week that I've spoken to, they feel that it will. But I think that's why the FIA set Formula E up so they didn't have to do it with Formula 1. I think they'll stay hybrid.
Yeah, definitely. They can't leave hybrid now after everything.
Yeah, but knowing how sneaky the FIA can be, what's to say that Formula E isn't just a test platform that will keep going until they've got engines that can do the speed and length of time that the current F1 engines can, and then blend the two.
I was just going to say, it's a question that cropped up on a couple of videos lately. Do we think F1 and Formula E could actually merge?
I don't think they'd merge. I think if it got to that point, Formula E would just disappear and they will come into F1 as the engine.
Almost like maybe some of the teams as well follow over. Jaguar and co, if they're still there, maybe follow over because they've gone electric in F1.
We can hope.
I'd love to see Jaguar back. British Racing Green, just not on a Red Bull. Will the new adoption of the Hypersoft tyre formula prove to be a game changer in 2018, asks TC McQueen. I don't see it getting used for anything other than a qualifying tyre, so Q3 pretty much, or somebody in the last stretches of, I don't know, say Lewis Hamilton's had a terrible qualifying, for whatever reason can't get out of Q1, sticks a Hypersoft on, that sort of thing.
Is there any races that's actually confirmed is allowed to be used though?
Yeah. I can't remember which one it was.
I don't think any of the four first races used it.
No, they haven't. It's China was the Ultrasoft. Ultrasoft, soft, medium, I think, which was what?
No, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I see some people saying Monaco here.
Monaco's a good shout, possibly Russia.
It's just low deck tracks, isn't it? And it should be fine around places like that. Tom Sparks, do you think BT will challenge Sky for F1 TV rights due to their moves in getting MotoGP and football from Sky? Maybe. I don't see Sky letting that go. But if I'm being completely honest, I don't want either to have it exclusively. I watch it on Sky, and that's fine for me. I can afford to do that, and I'm happy to do that. But there are a lot of young fans whose parents won't or can't afford to and are going to miss out on the sport. And I think, as I've said, as he starts to moan and rant again, you know, at the end of the day, Liberty Media's core aim is to get great racing and get young fans interested in the sport. And the first thing that's going to happen, I know it was a Bernie call, but the first thing that happens is it gets taken away from young fans on TV. It has to get back on free-to-air TV in some capacity.
Yeah, I would love it if BT tried to get some of it, because they've already got some of the football, which I never thought would happen because the money involved there dwarfs Formula One. So it's a good suggestion, and I hope they are looking into that.
I can't understand why they've not even, even if Bernie, as the tight git that he was, why he, quite frankly, and to the point as ever, but why he didn't think, okay, Sky can have it exclusively, but they have to sell a highlights package to the BBC, to ITV, to Channel 4. That's in the UK, obviously. There are loads of countries affected by it. But why not just the highlights, just an hour's highlight show? Very weird. It's taken it completely away from people. And yeah, you can get your clips on YouTube from F1, but it's never the full race. And you get maybe a 5-minute highlights thing, but it's not the same. And I don't know. It's frustrating. Like I say, I watch it on Sky. I enjoy the Sky coverage. I'd just rather see it on free TV as well.
Doesn't Formula E upload the races afterwards now?
Yes, they do, yeah. They do the full races, but I can't see F1 ever allowing that to happen.
They should, to be fair, but it's the FIA, after all.
It'd be interesting to see what kind of income Formula One could get from YouTube if it was all streamed live on there.
Yeah.
I wonder how well it balances with what they charge Sky.
It's true, yeah. Let's have a look. Christian asks, how come there's no Ferrari McLaren? I think, I'm assuming you mean like a Ferrari McLaren engine deal. To me, that's just rivalry. I could never see a Ferrari badge on that McLaren ever. I just can't ever imagine it.
No, I think Enzo would turn in his grave the day McLaren had a Ferrari engine.
I just can't imagine. I mean, it would be good for McLaren, but I don't know. No, I just can't see it. I mean, yeah, I think McLaren would compared to the Honda, but even then, I think they'd still rather have taken the Renault. But if they'd have pulled their finger out the backside and made the decision sooner, they'd be sat there with a Mercedes engine right now. So there you go. It's, yeah, we keep saying it's not been the best 3 years for McLaren. So, and they've made some pretty terrible calls, but this year, hopefully they'll nail it. A few more questions from the chat then. Loads tuning in tonight, so thank you if you are tuning in. If you haven't subscribed already, then please do so. I will give a shout out to some subscribers actually in a minute, because there's been quite a few in this stream. We've through 12k today, so thank you very much for that. McLaren and Ferrari are competitors, yep, absolutely. Red G says, thoughts on Alonso racing in WEC? I'll let you take that one first off, ST.
I hate the fact that they actually got to move one of the races, because that interfered with another race for the guys that race in VSC, that race in North America VSC. And basically that means one driver gets to go to one race, while I think like 15, 20 drivers misses out the race.
It's almost like, it almost gives the impression out that he's bigger than the sport.
Well,
a little bit, doesn't it? It makes it look like they're saying, you know, we're moving this for one driver. We're kind of sending the message out that Fernando Alonso is bigger than WEC, which, you know, that's up to people to decide. But I wouldn't say any driver's bigger than a series. But what are your thoughts on it all, John T?
No, I was just going to agree with ST. I think it's really wrong that they've had to move a WEC race just so he can take part in it. It's, you know, other drivers in the WEC series do race in other series. It could affect them. You know, why change it just for one guy when they have to plan their whole year around different series being in different places?
Yeah.
It's actually a bit of a negative for my like of Alonso, to be honest. Whether he had any say in that or whether he suggested it, asked for it, I don't know. But his ego's, as Lily Gaming says, his ego is getting a bit big.
It is. And it's only going to get bigger if they nail the car this year. But I think, for me, I understand he wants to do it. But if they're building a car that's good enough to compete and they're confident Renault are going to give them that car to compete, his focus should be solely on F1. I'm not going to knock him. He's ambitious. He wants to go off and do that Triple Crown, and that's great. But, you know, after he retires, he's probably got another 10 or 15 years in motorsport to go and do that if he wants. Martin Brundle still races, for God's sake. You know, so there's no reason why he couldn't do it when he finishes Formula One. He's got Monaco, so he doesn't need to worry about that. There's the two to do. His focus should be on F1. And although I like drivers racing in other series, I think in season their priority should be the team. And McLaren are saying it won't affect it. Rubbish. Of course it will. He's going to be racing, what was it? 5 or 6 weekends back to back in the summer with everything. Of course it's going to affect him. Of course it is. Yeah.
Basically Hartley this year.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah.
And it could affect things within McLaren themselves. I mean, can you imagine Alonso's off doing his thing in Endurance Championship, and you got McLaren on the phone to Stoffel saying, "We need a load of work done in the simulator. You've got to do 4 days this week instead of the usual 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Or you've got to be here all next week." That's going to cause tensions.
One of those things as well. Could you flip it over? Could you ever see Formula One moving a race to allow another driver to race elsewhere or to have somebody in? Could you imagine?
No, it just wouldn't happen.
you wouldn't. And I know the Formula One is bigger than WEC, and it just is. But just imagine Alonso rocking up to Jean Todt. Excuse me, could we move the Monaco Grand Prix because I really fancy a crack at Indy this year? I'm pretty sure the boot's going to be right up his backside and he'll be out the door. There's absolutely no way they'd do it because that just undermines the sport. And I don't know. I applaud him for wanting to do it. That's great. But like I say, he's got plenty of time after he retires to do it. So, we'll take 2 more. Then I'll do shout outs and then we'll finish it there because as ever, our 15-minute Q&A has rolled into a full half an hour. And we were getting quite good at knocking a couple of minutes off each week, actually, Jonty. We were getting there. But I think we're adding some this week.
Yeah, that's my fault for coming late. So
you're all right. Is there anything you want to say on that at all, Jonty?
No, I probably shouldn't.
No. Just wait and see if any questions come through. Hashtag blame John T. Yeah, why not?
Sorry for that one.
Can Lamborghini make a winning F1 engine if they would join? And that is from Mustard Jed World. I've probably got it wrong. I do apologise. But no, Lamborghini weren't great when they were in the sport briefly, were they? They weren't brilliant.
Yeah, they came in as an engine supplier, and it when we had just simple V12s, and they were terrible.
Yeah,
I'd love to see them in it, but I don't think they could.
It's one of those, isn't it? The more the merrier. But I'd rather have 5 engine manufacturers join that are going to be fairly competitive than have somebody turn up and we end up with another Honda situation.
Yeah, I could see that.
Just having a quick flick through, see if there's anything to finish on. Jaguar on the grid instead of Toro Rosso, as well as, like I just said, the more the merrier. It's that British Racing green that I'd love to see back. That's, again, a little bit of bias there, I guess. But the shark fins are gone for 2018, but apparently coming back for 2019 because that's what the FIA do.
Sponsored.
Now that you have 10k subs, when can we expect to see your face? That has been done on another stream somewhere. Maybe I'll start using my face a bit more once I've got everything sorted with the channel, because you might have noticed we're between about 7 different themes at the minute. So, we're getting there. Is it a question you fancy finishing on, John T, or should I go with the spotted?
Well, I just wanted to sort of make a point on what's next for Billy Munger. And whilst I would love it to happen, I don't think he will ever get to F1 or even F2. But what he is going to do is truly change motorsport for less able drivers. He is going to pave the way for those with disabilities in the future. And that just can't be ignored.
I've said it so often. I said it in the video again on Saturday in the news roundup. He's such a bloody inspiration, that kid. You think of some of the things that even I complain about in my life, and then there he is, everything he's gone through. What, 10 months? Let's not forget it was only last April that he had that accident. And look at where he is already. As unlikely as, as much as I understand what you're saying, John T, I do get the feeling that the way technology advances, he's young enough that it could happen. He could make it to F1, and that could just be me rooting for him a bit too much, and maybe, as I've said before, with things, heart ruling my head. But
he definitely could. There's no doubt about that. But I just don't think he will. I think he's too nice to just push for himself. He's going to put so much effort into opening up all of motorsport as much as possible for disabled drivers that his own driving career will kind of fall by the wayside without him realising it. And all of a sudden, there's going to be 10 disabled drivers across the top 5 series because of him, and he'll be 25 thinking, where's my driving career gone? But he'll be happy about it.
Yeah. Dennis Atlasov says disabled people are just not as good physically. I would have agreed with that had Robert Kubica not have just jumped in a car and blown some of the drivers that are on the grid out of the bloody water. So, fair enough. I get what you're saying. They're, less physically able, but I think Kubica has just proved a lot of people wrong on that. So,
yeah, and I'm pretty sure Zanardi was challenging for race wins and championship wins.
Niki Lauda.
Yep. I was just going to say Zanardi as well, and I think Billy Munger, he's racing again. He went testing in Formula 4 last week, so the restriction isn't there that was there 20 years ago, even 10 years ago. Technology's moving on.
Yeah, and Mighty Dash contingencies are made for those situations. Zanardi always raced with a comparable weight addition to balance out for his lack of legs.
Yeah.
At his insistence, I must add.
We'll finish off then. Nice quick one then. We'll start with you on this one, ST. It's Carl Lover's question. Hamilton or Alonso?
I'd definitely go Alonso in just personality and driving skills.
John T?
I prefer Alonso, and I'd say he's better in proper scraps, but pure pace is probably Hamilton.
I'll stick with what I've always said. Over one lap, I think Hamilton is the best on the grid. In terms of everything, racecraft, racing brain, just being able to... Yeah, I would say Alonso. All-round driver Alonso. Fastest one out there is Hamilton. No doubt for me. I'll do these shout-outs quickly then for our subscribers. There's been quite a few in this stream, actually, which is absolutely awesome. So thank you. Wow, they have. If I butcher your names, massive apologies in advance. Dennis, SQTOS, Joseph, Loyalty, Dan Durkin, Kane May 19619, Bailey Rock 2, Lorenzo, Ernie Jack, David Brown, TGF Philip, Jesus, Anton Von Torman, Wallace, James Salgado, Ronnie Taylor, Lily Gaming, TC McQueen, Chad 4208, Michael, Connor Murphy, Christian, and Demiscu. Jesus, that's the best stream we've had for a while. Thank you very much for all your subscriptions. That is awesome. Channel is booming, and it's great to have you on board. Yeah. Get my breath back now after that one. Thank you as ever, Jonty, for coming along. And thank you, ST, for, I guess, bailing me out at the last minute is what I'm going to say. So, yeah, you held your own, mate. It was awesome to have you on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No worries, mate. Thank you, Jonty.
Fun to have you on here for a change, ST.
Yeah, nice to be on there for a change as well, to be fair.
Yeah. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you to those once again. We will be back with more content, or I'll be back on Tuesday, I believe, with a video. I will also be back for a live stream on Wednesday for Q&A, where there'll be a couple of us involved in that one as well. So if I didn't get to your question today, don't worry. We will be back on Wednesday for a full hour, which that pretty much was anyway, a full hour of Q&A. We're just literally going to answer your questions. Bear with the channel over the next few days, if you don't mind, guys, because there are going to be some changes. As you can see, we're kind of between themes at the minute. I'm going around making a few changes, and yeah, there's only me, so I'm trying my best to get there, but we are getting there. But thank you once again for all of your subscriptions today. If you are still watching, haven't subscribed, please do smash that subscribe button. Give the video a like as well if you are around for that. You can follow me on social media. Links to Twitter, Facebook, and Discord are in the description, and also a link to my Patreon page if you want to check that out for me. And if you fancy supporting the channel over the long term, that would be awesome. Donations not mandatory, but they are massively appreciated and go a long way to helping me improve the channel. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.